Hello there, I'm Dr. Paul Newton from Expert Author Press, and I have Candace Plattor here, internationally renowned addiction specialist and author of the award-winning book, Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself. She's founder of the Candace Plattor Family Addiction Therapy Program, and she simply is a thought leader in the area of ending addiction in families. You're going to want to keep watching if you have an addict that you love, if you want them to stop their self-destructive behavior, and if you want to get your life and your family back. Welcome, Candace. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Paul. Good to be here.
And I'm really looking forward to digging into your unique approach to working with families and working with addiction. And what is that one key that really gets success in your program where others seem to fail?
I think there might be a few different keys, or maybe there's one and there's a few keys in the main key. But I talk a lot about enabling and about how an enabled addict just doesn't recover, because really, if you're being enabled, why should you change anything? So I talk about how there are different ways to enable somebody, because it isn't always just money. But within that, I talk about choice in addiction. I talk about how families can start to come out of their own comfort zones in terms of how they've been interacting with their addicts, so that their addicts can start coming out of their own comfort zones. And it just all seems to flow together.
Okay, and the concept of enabling, that seems to be a really hot concept in the area of addiction, and people seem to want to know, like, how do I stop? But why don't we, before even going there, talk about what is enabling?
Enabling is when you are doing for somebody else what they could and often should be doing for themselves.
And how does that look in addiction?
Well, there's a number of ways that people enable, strange and surprising ways, actually. I mean, the most obvious one is that you're giving somebody money. The person in your life who's addicted might come to you and say, "Hey, mom, hey, sis, can you lend me $20? Well, $20 doesn't seem like too much money. So sure, here you go, $20, go get a coffee and a muffin, right? But we know with an addict where that money is going. It's either going to drugs and alcohol, or it's going to compulsive shopping, or it's going to gambling, or it's going to something that feeds the addiction. So we don't want to be doing that with addicts. But another, one of the things I've seen is that a family member will actually drive their loved one to the dealer or to the liquor store, because their rationale is, at least I know where they are. They're safe with me in the car, in the seat next to me.
So I'm just trying to understand, because you're saying enabling is doing something for someone that they should be doing for themselves.
I'm giving you different examples
okay.
from that. But to come back to that, often what happens is that families will allow addicts who are in active addiction to live in the family home, and they're not asking them to contribute to the rent for the home or the mortgage. They're not asking them to contribute to food. So, they're not buying their own food. Often they're not cooking their own food. They're not preparing anything. They're not doing anything in the home. They often have their laundry done for them. They're not paying for any hydro for their long, hot showers. It's that kind of thing. Sometimes they're allowed to borrow the family car, even though the family might know that they're driving under the influence.
So they're getting a free ride, and they're not contributing, and they're not playing by the rules.
Well, and they become what we call entitled, and they start to feel like you should be doing this for me. Why should I have to pay for anything? So that's kind of a feeling of entitlement. Yeah.
Okay, and entitlement in a family can be really destructive, I imagine.
In many ways, yeah.
How does that show up?
Well, when an entitled addict, and when I say addict, I'm talking about any person in any addiction. So it could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be gambling, could be gaming, could be shopping, could be anything. But when an addict is the question was when it's entitled, when the person is entitled, what does that look like? Okay, so an entitled addict often gets very angry when the word no is said to them. That's the word they least like to hear, is no. So I mean, I've seen it happen that when they hear a no, they punch a hole through the wall or do something, they steal from the family, or, you know, they unplug the TV and they take it to the pawn shop, or that kind of thing happens. But they expect that every need is going to be met because we actually do teach other people how to treat us. And when we've taught an addict that we will do everything for them, they expect that everything will get done for them.
So there'd be a lot of fear in that family around the behavior of the addict, I imagine.
Yeah. When the addict gets angry, it's kind of like the Hulk. You know, the buttons pop open, the clothes go off, right? It's kind of like the Hulk. And so that's a really good point, because the loved ones, in most cases, especially if you're dealing with an addict who's using mind-altering substances like alcohol and drugs, most of them hate conflict. This is the thing that they want to avoid more than anything else. And that's how this whole system gets going. So they say yes when they don't mean yes, but they'll go along to get along, because they don't want the Hulk. They don't want the hole punched in the wall. They don't want anger spewed at them. So they people please. And this just keeps the whole thing going for a long time in many cases.
So I imagine a lot of people that you see know that they're enabling and they want to stop, but it's too scary. What do you do?
Well, it's interesting, because most of the people that I talk to now who have contacted me for help, the first thing they say pretty much is, I know I'm enabling, but we know we're enabling, but we don't know what else to do. And the truth is that they don't know what else to do, because there just isn't a lot of help out there for the loved ones. There's a lot of help for addicts, lots of help, but there's not help for the loved ones. So they honestly don't know what to do until somebody like me says, this is what you need to do.
So where would I start? Like what would I do if I was helpless or feeling helpless and my hopelessly addicted loved one, son, daughter, whoever is doing
Out of control,
self-destructive things?
just out of
Yeah,
control.
and where would I start?
Yeah, well, you want to try, I think reading this book is going to help you a lot. You're going to probably see yourself on a lot of the pages. So I would say do that. And you want to try to work with somebody like myself who knows how to help you, because a lot of alcohol and drug counselors don't know how to work with families in the way that really families need to be worked with. In fact, in most rehab centers in North America anyway, the family is hardly worked with at all, if at all.
And
So
if you were to give like one piece of advice to family members in how to stick to their guns in terms of not enabling, what is something that you could recommend?
Well, first of all, families need to get united. They need to be on the same page so that the manipulation from the addict can stop. But they need to be looking at what their boundaries are. They need to, even if it's little tiny boundaries, even if you start with baby steps, there need to be boundaries that are set, that are respectful to you as the loved one, that are healthy for the addict, that are respectful to the addict. And, you know, a boundary is only a boundary if there's a consequence that means something to the addict. Otherwise, I like to talk about the Charlie Brown cartoons on TV, where the kids all have voices and you can understand what they say, but the adults all sound like wah, 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 wah. And if all you're doing is saying, you can't talk to me like that, don't talk to me like that, the addict's going to start hearing wah, 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 not pay any attention. But if there's a boundary of, I'm not okay with you talking to me like that. If you do talk to me like that, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to have this conversation with you. That's a baby step boundary, but that's going to mean something to the addict. The addict doesn't want to have somebody turn their back on them and walk away. So there has to be a consequence that means something to the addict, and it needs to be maintained. So boundaries are so important.
And then painful as it is, if they don't stick to it, it's not a boundary.
It won't be an effective boundary at all. As soon as the loved one caves, and it's kind of the addict's job, an addict in addiction, inactive addiction, it's kind of their job to keep poking at them until they cave. Mom, can I have the keys to the car? Mom, give me the keys to the car. No, I'm not going to give you the keys to the car. Give me the keys to the car. And finally, mom says, oh, okay, here's the keys to the car. And as soon as that happens, the boundaries have to be set all over again with consequences that will be maintained, that will make the addict sit up and take notice. So you need to work with somebody to help you know what your boundaries are, how to identify those, how to language them to the addict, and how to maintain them when the going gets rough. Because otherwise, one of my favorite sayings is that if nothing changes, nothing changes.
So that is all really relevant information about what they can do. I'd like to direct our viewers to where they can get more information on you, where they can get your book, and how they can contact you.
If they go to my website, which is www.candaceplattor.com, and that's CandacePlattor. If they go there, right on every page is a little box that says, would you like to have a free 30-minute consultation? Telephone consultation, or maybe a Zoom consultation. Would you like to do that? And so if they click on that, then they'll get the questionnaire they need to fill out. As soon as we get the questionnaire, they'll have a 30-minute consultation that's free. And they can tell us what's going on for them, and they can we can tell them how we might be able to help them.
And the book is also available on your website, is it?
The book is available on my website. The PDF version is. The hard copy, this copy, is available on Amazon and many bookstores. If your bookstore doesn't have it, ask them to order it.
Okay, well, that's been really helpful. You've been watching Candace Plattor talking about enabling. Again, I'm Dr. Paul Newton with Expert Author Press, and I look forward to seeing you again.